himself so he can get all his wonderful details down accurately. But I really appreciate him being so flexible as our club has gone through some very strange turmoil in the last couple of months. We've had to change and cancel and whatever. But Zack stayed with us the whole way through, and now we welcome Zack to come speak to us tonight.
I just want to first off say thanks to all of you for being here. I am originally from Lafayette, and a lot of my family is going through probably a lot of the same things that you and your family are going through if you're affected by the flood. And I just want to say thank you for being here tonight. You know, no matter what hardships that life puts in front of us, we always find that as a visual artist, there's something we always come back to, photography. We're going to document our world no matter what, and it's great to see all these photographers right here. I'm honored to be here. I'm very thankful for Pam and Renee for making this happen. So what I'm going to talk about tonight, I would like to introduce myself by showing images, because as a photographer, I speak with pictures. And I'm sure you understand what that means. I really don't have to explain that to y'all. It's really great. So I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about what I do. If you've seen my website or been in touch with my social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff, you know I take a lot of pictures of people. And I heard Marvin,
yeah.
You take pictures of people.
I love pictures.
Yeah, and you probably love people.
Yeah.
Yes. And anybody that who did I meet, Mr. Johnson? Cats.
Yeah.
You dig cats. You photograph them well. Photograph what you love. Shoot what you know. Shoot what you love. You are the expert in that world. And so I photograph a lot of people. So this is my website right here. And I wanted to show you just a few of the sections on the website. Oh, could we get the lights right here? Maybe we can see the images a little bit better. Thank you. I appreciate your help. So I'm not going to go through all of these right here. But a lot of my work focuses around people, because I, like you, I love people. I love a good story. Being from Lafayette, Louisiana, my family were a bunch of storytellers. There was always some truth and fiction to a great story, as you may know. And I loved a good story. I loved hearing it. I loved to write about it until I wanted to photograph that story. So people hire me to tell their story, whether it's a musician, a lawyer, a musician, a t-shirt company. I tell their story. With every client, I look at it as a relationship where I need to solve their visual problem. There's a t-shirt that's called Lineup. It's about second line brass band, so why not have a brass band in the shot? Kind of a no-brainer right there. But it takes a certain type of person to put together those shots. So as you all know, learning your camera is just a small part of being a photographer. It's communication with people. It's location scouting. It's finding the right background, the right lighting. There's a lot of other things that go into it. A lot of what I do is called environmental portrait photography. So what I do is I try to tell the story of the person with the environment they're in. Because what we're doing as photographers, we're taking a three-dimensional moment, the touch, the smell, the feeling, the sight, the wind, and we're turning it into a flat, backlit, and sometimes front-lit image, if you're showing it on a wall. We don't have that third dimension of depth anymore, so we're magicians trying to create depth through environment, lighting, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. We create depth, and we create the story through depth as well. As you see, there's a lot of people with instruments. I'm a musician myself, and as I said before, shoot what you know, shoot what you love. There's a certain language that musicians speak that I know. They know I'm not going to make them look silly. This is a singer. A lot of the shots I do, I try to make you think a little bit. This is actually flipped upside down in a reflection. If you do follow any of my social feeds, I do a lot of reflection shots. And I love telling the stories in the context of the city I'm in, the things that people do, the artists that paint Louisiana. So why not bring Rebecca Reboucher with her 10-foot fish out to Irish Bayou on an old pier? That would look really boring in a studio, right? It'd probably be pretty great. She's beautiful, the fish is beautiful, but you gotta have that environment to fire that story back. So that's a little bit of my portrait work, but as you know, with portraits, you can also get into the commercial world. And when you get in the commercial world, that is a business or a university, anyone that sells a product using photography to make money for that product. There's different rules that you go by between commercial, editorial, and fine art portrait. And this is a recent campaign I did with Loyola University for their campaign fund, capital campaign fund, also for the new students coming in. Still portrait work, but portrait work working with a team of advertisers and marketing experts, people who are going to put the words and fonts over the images to try to sell their product. But still, portraits. And you don't have to look too hard to find the logo anywhere we're looking. This was a series I did with the New Orleans Tourism and Marketing Corporation for a series of advertisements, little 30-second spots that they had out. The 610 Stompers, this is Flirty Girl T-shirt company. This is all to promote the Champion Square shows. As you see the space right there for the times of the shows and creating that vibe. I photograph bankers. I photograph campaigns, the letsbetotallyclear.org. This was about 7 or 8 years ago when Louisiana was trying to be at the forefront of non-smoking casinos and bars, which is doing really well right now. But at the time, it was very unclear. Eyeglass, eyewear companies, style, fashion, but all portraits. There's still a need for communication with people. And since I love people, I love a good story, all along I'm talking to these people, getting them to try to be the best version of themselves when there's cameras and lights and other people with computers. That's hard. It kind of takes the art out of it, but that's how you get into it. So that's some of the commercial work. That's a funny one, right? What are we selling there, right? That is a t-shirt. That is the Lucky Louie t-shirt from 30 Coast T-shirts in New Orleans. So why not get on a boat with a pirate in the water? Make it easy. So, and also with editorial, it's still all about portraits. It's about telling the story of an article, teaming up with writers, magazines, universities, but all portraits. So it's a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. And I just want to say, I would love to answer any question that you have about portrait work, the business side, commercial, anything after the talk. I love talking about photography. I can talk forever. I'm talking for an hour and a half. Is that right? Good. And also want to show you real quick, I feel that the sharing of knowledge is something that makes us all better photographers. I got nothing to hide, so I share everything I know. That's why I have a workshop series that goes year-round teaching the stuff that I do. Natural light portraiture, mixed light strobe portraiture, landscape photography, festival photography, Lightroom, Photoshop, photography workflow, bromoil, fine art, printing. I do a little bit of it all, even one-on-one photography courses. You can see all that on my website. So I want to ask y'all, who here likes free stuff? Who here likes free? I mean, it's like, it's good, it's legit, it's free. There's a lot of names. Who here is on my mailing list? Okay, so there's only maybe 4 people who like free photography advice. So I have my business cards back there by your name tags. I do a weekly How-To Tuesday, photo tips and techniques. You can sign up right on my website. You'll get a video, you'll get tutorials, and you'll get galleries, free stuff. Continuing on about the free stuff, My talk today is about using the free light. So let's get into it real quick. So I brought a few helpers here. Using the free light is all about using the available light for portraits. When I first started photography, I knew nothing about strobes. I'm still learning on how to use them in mixed light situations, but I always started with the free light. The free light, the available light, the sun, the diffused sun, specular sun, the free light here. Artificial light can be free light. It comes in many forms. Even when using very difficult mixed strobe techniques, you always want to start with the free light if you're able to. I had the benefit of working with the amazing Herman Leonard for 3 years when he was in New Orleans. I was his lighting assistant. I learned a lot during those years of photographing portraits, the old school way, and I still bring that to me in my portraiture. He taught me a lot about mixed lighting, and I'm always learning, but it always starts with the free light. So we're going to talk about these things right here as we go, but this is called using the free light. And also, this is done in Prezi. It's a presentation software which I emailed to Pam and Renee, who are going to send you this presentation tomorrow, today, whenever. This is yours. Do what you want with it. Share the information. I got nothing to hide. So, keys to a successful portrait. I find that connection to your background, connection to your subject is very important. As you saw in some of those shots that I had, the background helps tell the story. You don't want the background to distract from the subject, right? How many times have we taken a picture and there's a telephone wire out of somebody's head, a car bumper right in the bottom left corner? Oh, I didn't see that. Oh. Well, it's all about taking your time, planning, finding the environment, putting your portrait in the shot. Connection to your subject. Most of my clients, most of my musicians that I photograph, we have at least a few email talks, maybe a talk on the phone, and if they're in New Orleans, we meet in person. That connection that I can make to them allows me to get to the next level of who they are. Because anytime you're at a photo shoot and you feel the urge to say, just act natural, don't do it. That's the last thing they're going to do. Or just be yourself. Well, that's the last thing you want to say too. Anytime you can learn more about your subject before the shoot and have a connection, you establish a trust. Number 2, understanding your subject's visual problem. You heard me say this earlier. Anyone that comes to you, I'm speaking on a client photographer basis. You can use this for yourself if you do your own special projects. Any client or model, musician, anyone's going to have a visual problem. They're coming to you because they can't do it themselves. You're the expert because you know the tools, you know the lenses, the cameras, the settings to make them look the way they want to look. The way they want to look is in their mind, and it's your job to get that out. Sometimes you'll meet 3 or 4 times, and you still won't get that out. Who here does weddings? Okay, weddings, one thing, I do a few weddings a year, but I don't advertise because I always think that's the hardest thing for people to get out of their mouths is how they want to look on the most important day of their life. It's very hard, a lot of mixed signals. I'm not good at the wedding thing, so I give you props if you are. Number 3, trust, then open communication with your subject. I feel that the more a subject knows that the photographer is going to take care of their image and likeness, the more they're going to open themselves up and trust the photographer and give them the best of themselves. And the trust comes with, back to number 1, connecting to your subject, getting to know them on a deeper level than just how they look. Confidence in your tools, knowing your camera. I think someone said there, the mentor project earlier, I think you said, you got to know your camera. It's very important. We can't be visual problem solvers if we don't know the tools we're working with. Because the tools we're working with must be second nature at the time when we're working with people. The last one, this is something that I bring with me in all my workshops, intention in capture, and purpose in presentation. Why are we taking a picture? What is your intention of making that photograph? And also, where is it going to go? You're going to compose differently, you're going to light differently if you're going to shoot a vertical ad with a spacer at the top versus maybe a horizontal slider on a website or a magazine. Knowing the presentation format will help you as a photographer guide you in composition. I think that's some of the hardest things that we do is we try to figure out what lens we're going to use. I mean, forget what exposure and aperture we're going to use. Sometimes we get stuck on what lens to use, because the lens is the eyes of the camera. And knowing where it's going to go will really help you out with that. So using the free light, what is free light, and what should be why should it be our first option? I have some short descriptions of what the free light is. I'm sure we all know full sunlight. Can somebody give me some characteristics of what that does to a portrait? Full sunlight. Let's say full sunlight. Yeah. Squint. Okay, yeah. Anything else? Harsh shadows. Full sunlight. Exactly. So there's a couple of different ways we can describe harsh sunlight. Overhead harsh sunlight. Squint. Shadows. Exactly. What about low setting sun or low rising sun? Backlight. Silhouette. Hair light. You put the sun behind someone, you get hair light. Softer, warmer. So the descriptors that we might use for an early morning or afternoon sun are very different from that overhead sun. So that just gives us an idea that there's so many ways to use this sun to light our portraits. Diffused sun, when the clouds come in front of the sun. Depending on the time of day, that could be very different. Why should it be our first option? Well, because it's free, it's easy to use. Who here feels more comfortable with natural light? Just raise your hand. Yeah, most of you. Yes, because we're not dependent on a battery to ignite a flash. We're not dependent on a cable plugged into a wall to create power for us. We're able to freely move and create and connect. That's the biggest thing. Create and connect with the free light. That's the reason why I love it. If I can use the free light on a photo shoot, I don't care how much someone's paying me to be there, I will use it. I'm not the guy that needs to bring out every light I own to make you realize I know what I'm doing. I'm going to take your visual problem, use the free light, and give you the shots you want. Start with the free light. More free light. So free light can be expressed in many different ways. What's some words that maybe describe this kind of light? Moody. Yeah, anything else? Contrasting? Maybe? Yeah. This type of free light is a little harder to work with because there's not a lot of it, but it gives you another creative angle to use with your portrait. Knowing the different textures of the free light, whether it's diffused, harsh, backlit, sometimes like this, contrasty and moody, knowing what that does to someone's face or body or head will give you the tools you need to help someone with a visual problem. Or even help you with the visual problem. When you're thinking, what light do I use? Well, you got to go through that visual Rolodex in your head. So today I brought 3 different ways to light a portrait. Bounce, diffuse, and combo. There are many ways to manipulate the free light. Having a few items will help, and this is one big one right here. An assistant to work with you is ideal. I think a lot of us get frustrated with portrait photography because it's hard to do by yourself. One hand on the camera, one hand on a stand or a light, trying to connect with someone, you can't do it. You can't do it. You will be able to create better images when you bring someone out with you. Look at y'all. Y'all could have 2 or 3 people go out on a shoot any given day. I'm sure you know how to get in touch with each other. Y'all can help each other. Y'all have a great community here. It's really hard to find just any random person to come help you. Having an assistant to hold the reflectors, hold the diffusers, because who knows what happens when you get those things high outside. The wind takes it, it falls over, and it lands on somebody. It's happened to me before, until I go out every time with an assistant. I'll pay someone $50, $100, $200, depending on how much time that we have, depending on the client's budget, to be with me, just to hold on to that. So the first one is a 5-in-1 reflector. I'm sure you guys have all seen this. Is that right? Yep. Did you say fold it?
No, I'll hold it for you.
Okay. You need an assistant? No, I'm good. I have right here the gold side of a 5-in-1 reflector, but as you see, the 5-in-1 means there's a diffuser right in the middle, which will diffuse the sun, kind of like a cloud. There's a gold reflector, a silver reflector, a white reflector, and a black side to block the light. You have 5 uses in one. Who has one of these? If you do portrait work, this is a must. If you do macro photography, this is a must. Flowers, botanicals, kids, this is a must. This is the best thing to have in your bag. All of these things we're talking about, I have the links for them at the end of this, okay? The Westcott Scrim Gem, I don't have that exact one here, but I have the one thing better, which is the Last Light Skylight Rapid, which is this right here. This is the coolest thing that I've recently bought, and I don't leave home without it. This folds up into a small blue bag. This is a diffuser, silver reflector, white reflector, and there's a gold and a black that attaches. It's pretty amazing. I'm going to show you different ways that I've used these things to light portraits, because this is awesome to have. You can shoot strobes through it. You can diffuse sun with it. You can bounce sun about 30 to 40 feet away from your subject, and it will almost blind them. It's pretty amazing. The larger the surface area for diffusion or reflection, the more powerful it is, right? The larger that diffuser gets, the softer the sun gets. Soft light, great for portraits, right? Okay. Unless you want harsh light, which that's one way to light a portrait. But you'll know that because you talk to your clients and you're solving their visual problem. So this is one shot right here. I don't know a lot of people that just use a diffuser, but man, when it's the right time to just use the diffuser to diffuse the sun, it's really nice to use because it gives a very even, soft light on your subject. So right here, can anybody guess where the sun is? Right, her right, our left. And in this case, the background in this story, I've used a shallow depth of field. I've used a little bit longer lens to compress the background. But in the last shot right there, I've had something in the background that tells a little bit more about her. Maybe you guys in Louisiana, us in Louisiana, sportsman's paradise, you might recognize the duck. So what do you think she likes to do for fun? Duck hunt. Exactly. This was a shoot I did at Woodland Plantation years ago. It was a senior, she was a senior graduating high school. These were her senior shots. She wanted to be in camo with her gun and everything and wanted to have her truck in the shot. And I thought it was too cool. I'd never done a shoot like that. But this right here, I recognized that bouncing the sun right onto her with the silver or gold was overpowering things. I wanted to soften the light. That Last Light diffuser is right outside of that frame. It's very, very close to the subject. I don't have any wide documents of this shot, unfortunately, but it's out there. And if you can see at the bottom right there, she's kind of squinting just a little bit because what that diffuser is doing is spreading out the sun very much. What I love about this, look at the catch light in her eye. Catch light is key when we're doing portraits. Catch light is key when we're learning how to do portraits as well, because we can see what type of light the photographer was using. Anytime I'm in the checkout line at any grocery store, I'm always looking at the cover of the magazines. This is me. Like, looking in there, people are going behind me, I'm trying to find the catch light. I want to see what the Hollywood cats are doing. I want to see what the New York cats are doing. They're using monster, parabolic, Profoto lights. Sometimes they're using small, soft boxes, rectangulars. Sometimes they're using diffusers, but I'm trying to study what they're doing because I like the light they're creating. So try that next time. If you want to know what type of light someone's using, look in the eye. And you can see the highlight in her eye is to her right, which is where my diffuser is. fancy with the diagrams right here. So I have the sun and the diffuser to show you where the sun was coming from. Pretty nice, huh? So this was just the diffused sun overhead. So you can have the sun right next to someone or over. And I brought this right here. Even though I have an assistant on this shoot, this is a heavy-duty C-stand with a arm grip. So with another C-stand, we can raise this up and make it flat right above our subject to diffuse the sun. So wherever the sun goes, we can have a cloud over it. Think of that as a white, diffused cloud. Because as we know, some clouds, if there's a little rain in it, they're a little cooler, right? A little more blue. So I love this nice diffused light right here. So again, the more dispersed the sun is, the softer the light is. And that's just like in strobe photography. If anybody uses strobes, the larger your softbox, the softer the light, the softer your shadow. So shadows under the chin, on the face, shadows on the background, they're softer with the larger light. So again, creating a connection, diffusing the light, the trust, and telling the story. So this is all part of that same shoot that we're doing. Can anybody tell where we are right now? What's that? We're at Woodlands Plantation, but like where are we on the plantation? Front porch. Yeah. We're on the front porch. Not literally, I don't want that in focus. I want it very, very soft. And I brought the lens that I made this portrait with, and a couple more for you guys to see if you're interested. Who here has a Petzl lens? Oh man, gotta get it. I brought it's in my bag over there. It's a reissue of a Joseph Petzl design of a lens made in the turn of the century, and it produces what's called swirly bokeh. And if you look in the background, those out of focus elements kind of create this like tunnel. That's kind of a buzzword right now, and any of you old school photographers know bokeh has been around, but now it's cool. There's Instagram filters like instant bokeh. It's like the cool thing. It's hip to be diffused and out of focus, but this lens is specifically made for that. It has the old school drop-in apertures. So you drop in the aperture that you want. Really cool. Very hard to focus. Who here has a 1.4 or 1.2 lens? Hard to focus at 1.2, right? Yeah. It's harder than it seems. I have one picture of a gold reflector. So I have the picture of my exposure without the reflector. So if you notice, what I do when I'm setting up a portrait, I set the background first. I set my composition. My camera's on a tripod. I always use a tripod when I'm doing portraits like this. Why? Because I want my background to remain the same so I can connect with my subject. Because if you don't have a tripod and you want to do portraits, every time you put your eye up to that camera, your background changes. And if backgrounds are important, then you've knocked them down a couple of pegs on your priority list. Backgrounds are very important. Lock them down with a tripod so you can connect with your subject. And again, I do have an assistant here, but this is with the gold reflector right there. And you notice the warmness is a little bit different than the one over here, this first one. This one's warm, but the other one feels a little warmer. Or you can tell in her hair a little bit, and also the blouse. And the silver. These are two different versions of the silver reflector. You notice that we're in the same place, same reflector, two different lenses, totally different shot. It's another thing, get back to what I said earlier, knowing your tools, knowing what your lenses produce. Not every lens is created equally. Some lenses produce more contrast. Some lenses are softer. Some kit lenses that you get that come with the camera aren't the best lens in the bag, but they're not the sharpest. That could be a good thing. You need to know the tools so you can figure out, maybe I don't want this sharp lens on this portrait. So the image on the right again, notice the swirly bokeh from the Petzl kind of fades off. Very hard to use though. So maybe this was 1 out of 50 shots that I got, and I kind of left the other ones. Diffuser, reflector combo. This is one of my favorite ones. Same situation as we saw earlier. We're diffusing the sun using this guy, but we're having a reflector that's bouncing the sun back into the shadow areas to fill in the other side. So in essence, it's kind of like a 2-light setup if you're talking in strobes, where you have a key light, which is your main light source, your sun through the diffuser, and you have a fill light, but in this case you have a fill reflector. All the while we're basing our exposure on what? The free light. My background exposure has not changed. I'm just bringing in light, okay? That's the wonderful thing about using reflectors and diffusers. No batteries, no cables, no nothing. You can connect with the subject and fire off shot after shot. You can have them do something. You can have them jump, kind of like you saw that shot earlier. And you can just put it on high-speed shutter, and you don't have to wait for anything to recycle. Some other shots. That top left shot right there is when we can use the actual sun, as I said earlier, as rim light. What rim light does in a portrait, it helps us create contrast and depth. It helps, I use the word carve out, but it's not a good word. It helps separate the subject from the background even more. And as I said earlier, as photographers, we're trying to make a flat 2-dimensional image feel 3-dimensional. We're trying to bring the viewer back to what we saw. Using hair light, contrast, will bring the subject out from the background. Shallow depth of field, diffuse background, even further accentuates that. So I have a large reflector bouncing light back up in the subject's eyes right here, and just have her head creeping into the sunlight. Bottom left, that's just shade. That's no sun, just shade. And it's nice. If the background, foreground, and subject are in the same light, that's a great shot. Whenever I'm teaching beginners, some of the first assignments are put the sun at your back and shoot like that for a week. That means the sun is shining on everything in front of them, so your exposures aren't all over the place. The one on the right there is very similar to the one up on the left. I'm using the sun to light her side, and I'm filling it in with the reflector. Okay, so I'm not going to be too much longer. I want to hear some questions. Where to start? So everything that I talked about right there is based on a philosophy I have called let the subject set the settings. And I'm sure there's some other people who have this. It may be called the same thing, it may be called a different thing, but I feel that using this philosophy right here will help you hit the proper shutter speed, aperture, focal length, composition every time. And you can apply this for anything as well. First, you must identify your subject. Who's your subject? And where is your subject too? It's a good one. What's their story? So, doing those interviews, thinking about who you're photographing, talking with them, figuring out what the story is, the visual problem that you're solving for them. What is their story? Knowing their story is the background important. A lot of the shots you saw that I've done so far, the musicians and the subjects are in an environment that helps tell that story. Well, in some of those environments, it is important to me. Is it not important? So this will help guide you to set your aesthetic. Your aesthetic being, in the case of portraiture, especially free light portraiture, your aperture. Think about your aperture being the aesthetic choice that you're going to choose to show how your image feels. Now, are you with me on that when I say aperture, the feeling? So the depth of field, shallow depth of field versus extended depth of field where the background is sharp and the foreground is sharp. That's a feeling, right? That's a feeling we're conveying to our viewers of the image. So if the background is important, we'll probably set an aperture of 5.6, f8, f11, depending on what type of lens we're using, so that the background is more in focus and the viewer is able to see how that interplays with the subject. If the background is not important, maybe 2.8, 1.8, set an aperture that blurs out the background, creates a texture that makes your subject pop out. So right there, before we've taken a picture, we set our aperture, we set the aesthetic. Then set new technical, shutter speed. So I didn't mention ISO earlier. If we're shooting in the sun outdoors, common rule is the lowest ISO possible or the native ISO for your camera. Some are 160, some are at 200. The lower the ISO, the sharper the image is going to be. You're not going to get into the noise. So we're setting ISO already for daytime. But after we set the aperture, we just need to set the shutter speed for the technical side. Technical meaning how much light we're letting in, or how much light we're not letting in. Has anybody heard the term find the zero? So when we're exposing manually, we set the aperture and we look at our meter. If our meter's all the way +3, that means we're over 3 stops exposed from the zero. 18% reflectivity, if you want to get technical. What I say is when you're finding your exposure, use your shutter speed, the technical, to find the zero and take a test shot. That's really how I expose for all of my free light portraits. I know what story I want. I use aperture to create depth. I bring in my fill light and my bounce, and I use the shutter speed to let in more light or let out more light. The good thing about shooting during the day, you're not playing around with shutter speeds below 60th, rarely, especially if you're at ISO 200, ISO 400. So you're okay to handhold if you need to, but if you're on a tripod, it's kind of anything goes. Use the free light and test. So take a test shot, press play. Beautiful thing about digital is that we can see what we get. And if you're shooting film and you can afford Polaroid film, then I want to talk to you after class because I have a great proposition for you. So yeah, if you're shooting digital, you can see the image in the back and make your adjustments. And I rarely use a light meter when I'm shooting the free light. I'll use a light meter when I'm doing mixed light portraits for sure. So this is just something I want to leave with you guys. Things I've learned from being an observer, director, and visual problem solver. As you saw, as a photographer, I like to photograph people, but I also like to tell a story of the city. When I'm traveling, documentary photography, I have my camera on me at all times. I'm filming this right now. My camera's in my truck. I might shoot some of the LSU lakes on the way home. But what I've learned is being an observer of people, a director of people, and a visual problem solver, being happy at what you do should be number one in your books. You should be happy when you take a picture, or you nail an exposure, as it said, or when the angles and the light all combine for that magic moment and you're there. That should make you happy. That should keep you going for the next thing. It shouldn't be about how much am I going to get paid for this picture? How much am I going to get paid for this client? For a long time, I didn't even think about that. I just wanted to make pictures. I wanted to solve visual problems. Shoot what you love. Photograph the things that you care about and the things you know about. Because, as I was kind of pointing people out earlier, there are things within each one of you that no one else has. Find out what that is. And by this point, you probably know what that is. Use that to let that be your photographic guide. I love people. I'm a musician. I photograph musicians. Duh. That comes naturally for me. But I love people. I love stories. I love interacting. So I do commercial, editorial, fine art portrait. Just makes sense. Stay connected with your creative community. Just looking out at you guys right now, this is an amazing community right here. And I keep in touch with, where's Rick? Is that Rick? Hey, there you are. I thought I recognized your face right there. I recognize faces just from keeping in touch on your Facebook page and seeing people posting images like, hey, what do you think about this? Hey, let's meet up later. That is what it's all about. I don't know about you guys, but pre-Katrina in New Orleans as a photographer, I don't remember anything like this. Anything like the New Orleans Photo Alliance, which is an amazing source right now. It felt like we were all on our own. And now, when there's moments that bring us together, as photographers and visual artists, that only makes us stronger. And it's great to see all y'all out here. So stay connected with this creative community, because you might find an assistant. There's a point to that. Never lose the sense of wonder, excitement, and joy of what you do. Do what you must to find it within you. And that's pretty self-explanatory. And something I like to say is do good work, be nice to people, and stick around. Do your good work, know your tools, know your light. And if you're nice to people, you don't go anywhere, people realize that you're the guy they're going to call for portraits. You're the guy they're going to call for cats. You're the guy they're going to call for whatever you do right. You stick around, and you're going to get work. You're going to get that creative juices flowing, no matter if it's for money, to put it on a wall, to win whatever photo contest is about to happen after this. So whatever that is, keep doing that. So thank you very much. And I wanted to tell you guys, please keep in touch with me. I have my business cards up there, workshops a lot, and I'm planning a Baton Rouge night workshop very, very soon that I'll let you guys know about. But I do want to take some questions if we have time. Is there time? A couple? Yeah?
You said you were videotaping. I meant to see you.
Yes, sir.
What is your reason for that?
What's my reason for that? Well,
How do you do?
okay, so in talking about community, I do a lot of, if you go on my website, I have almost 40 How To Tuesdays, photographs and tips and techniques, and with that, releasing that over the last 8 months, I've created a community of people who want to know tips, techniques, how to do things, and I'm broadcasting what I'm saying and what's back there to the people who can't be here right now. Yeah. Anything else? Anything about lighting, subjects, portraits? And I can hang around after if you want. Yeah.
Do you pay a lot of attention to your histogram?
Histogram? Not really. Not really. I kind of never pay attention to it. Because what I do, I showed you how I expose for everything. I get my depth of field, I get my aesthetic, I set my shutter speed, and I know in my camera, so there's more information, not to get too technical, as some of you may know, there is more information in the highlights than there is in the shadows. Overexposing an image just a little bit is okay if you're shooting raw and you can bring down those highlights for the detail later. So if I know that, and I'm creating brackets, maybe 2 or 3 exposures per shot, I can get what I need in Lightroom later. So yeah, I don't look at that. I should, right? I don't look at that. Yeah, yes sir.
You mentioned that one of your photos probably took 50 different images to get the one you wanted.
Yeah, the pencil.
Yeah. What are you looking for in getting that perfect image?
Oh, okay. The first thing I'm looking for is if her eyes are in focus. With such a shallow depth of field with a specific lens like that, I need those eyes to be in focus, because where that was going, that could be printed 16 by 20. And if her nose is in focus, it's bad news for me, right? So first I'm finding out if that eyeball is in focus. And if that is, then I'm going just for the mood. I'm going for how my subject looks, how they interact with the background. So maybe I don't have to do a lot of work later on, editing. Okay, I'll turn it over right here. Thanks everybody.